let's just be honest, you guys. Welcome back to Vancouver Drywaller. There, I said it. Okay, the mud with training wheels in it. This is a pretty strange claim to make, but this mud, concrete fill, which is not concrete, it's a product that's designed to skim coat over top of concrete. I'm gonna try and get a little bit of this on my knife so you can kind of see the aggregate in it. So it's gonna be kind of hard to see, but there's little grains of perlite in here. You really can't see it. There's also small strands of fiberglass that help bridge the gaps and make it less likely to crack. So this is a very strong, stable, sticky mud. So the reason I think this is kind of like training wheel mud is because of the small grains of perlite. When you're coating with it, it tends to roll on in a smooth, even layer, which you'll see as we start coating with it. I don't even need to use it for this job, but I really wanted to make a video showing you guys this stuff and some of its unique properties. So videos where I've used this in the past have been any of my videos with mud framing in the title. You want to check that out. You can see what this stuff is really for. You can build it up to an inch thick. It's great for just fixing atrocious framing, horrible drywall work when you're just the taper. Like, this stuff is the way and the light when you need to fix some horrible stuff. Anyways, we're gonna get some mixed up here and I'll show you why I think it's like training wheel mud. So I was just up in Whistler doing a training session with some guys, and for the first coat over top of the whole thing, I got them to use this stuff because I wanted them to be familiar with this product, know it exists, and how to work with it. Now, one problem is this is really just a Western Canada product, so you're not gonna find this. I think even in Eastern Canada, they don't have it. The US equivalent, something similar but not exactly the same, would be USG Structolite. So that stuff, again, has the perlite aggregate in it, but the difference is this is a joint compound. This is intended to go over drywall and, again, concrete, but the other one is a plaster product. It's a base coat plaster. So where you might run into difficulties with that is it's going to be really hard and probably not very sandable. This one is actually sandable and scrapable, whereas the base coat plaster is going to end up rock hard, and it also might not have the same adhesion. So you may actually need to, I don't know, I can't even recommend adding glue or adding all-purpose mud into base coat plaster because I don't have it. I've never tried it. So here's what I want to know. Anyone in the comments, let me know, what is the base coat plaster Structolite like? How does it adhere to things? How hard does it dry? Is it at all user-friendly? Because this product is actually kind of user-friendly and beginner-friendly when you're learning how to use setting muds. It won't kick off rock hard on you. There is some workability and, again, some sandability to it. So it's not going to completely ruin your project and ruin your day. So I'm going to show you a little secret about mixing this stuff up too. Right now I just need to get it to the right consistency. So that's pretty good right there. I just need to get the dry stuff off the side of the bucket. So I'm going to tell you guys a little tip that will also work with regular hot mud, not just this weird grainy mud that I have here. So let's say you're applying consecutive coats of hot mud. So I don't know if anyone else has ever noticed that your second coat, like if you're doing multiple coats, your second coat will often start to be kicked off and become unworkable by the first coat. So if you want a little tip that will help your mud stay a bit more workable, what you can do is once you get it mixed up like this, so as soon as it's lump free and smooth, you can now add some mud to it. And even though I don't need to do this, I'm just doing this to give you guys one more kit, one more tool in your toolbox. So adding this mud, if you're working with regular quickset, not my training wheel mud, but if you're working with regular hot mud, you can add some all-purpose or taping mud. Once you already have it mixed, throw a couple of scoops in like this. That's going to improve its workability, stop it from setting so easily over top of the original coat of quickset, and it's also going to improve adhesion. It will slightly change the properties. Don't go more than like 15%. 15 to 20% is the most you want to go, because if you go too far, it's not going to set quite the same. It'll stay a little bit softer, and it'll start to take on the properties of regular air drying mud. But if you do this, you know, like I said, a small amount, it's just going to improve adhesion and improve workability. And also avoid your warranty. We've talked about warranties before, probably in my last video, but yeah. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to get the job done and make the products you have on hand work a little better. So the reason that we do it in this order, like mixing the powder and then putting the joint compound in after, is because if you tried to, say, put the mud in first and then put powder into the mud, it won't mix properly. You got to do it in this exact order or it's just not going to work out for you. This is some more advanced stuff, you guys. These are like the kind of trade secrets. Okay, let's get some of this training wheel mud out. Really hope that you guys are able to kind of see how this stuff could be beneficial to somebody who's new to it. You want to keep it kind of thin. If it's too thick, it's just hard to work with. So what we're going to be trying to do on this job is just put like an even first coat with this stuff. And I really want you to see how it can kind of go on so smooth and flat. So 14-inch trowel here. Now what I should have done is check this. That's not bad. I mean, this isn't even warranted, but I really wanted to show you guys this stuff and I didn't know when my next opportunity was. So it doesn't feather easily at first. So right now I'm just loading. Now we're going to get into that whole feathering thing. Feather my edge. Feathers half decently, obviously because there's aggregate. It's not going to feather 100% properly. But the goal of this is not to get a feathered edge. You do need to put 2 more coats of mud over top of this stuff, which is more or less the same to regular quickset. I find to get perfect results, a lot of the time you need 2 coats over top of hot mud. So now I'm just doing my basic coat like this. And I could even, I'm kind of pressing, keeping a low angle on the trowel. I should put a little bit more on here, but I'm trying to show you guys how it just sort of like, it rolls and it gives you that like flat layer. It doesn't have a lot of really uneven ripples. Like when you try and do a deeper fill with regular mud, it tends to drag and pull and ripple a bit more. But because this stuff has that aggregate in it, you can just do such nice, smooth, rolling coats. So I hope that you didn't think this is too clickbaity. I really think that giving this stuff to people who are not totally inexperienced, but inexperienced with floating big joints, will actually help them get flatter work. So that's about what I would expect for my first coat. We're going to scrape this down after it sets up and we'll apply a tighter, more even, thin coat over top of this. But we'll keep going and see if I can think of some more things that I should be telling you guys about. So most of the time I wouldn't have added any taping mud like I did. We got, you know, a bunch of patches here. Let's really get that kind of wide and built out. I mean, I love this stuff. How's the lighting and footage looking there, camera guy?
Looks good.
Awesome. Camera guy is my good friend Adriano, to anyone who's wondering. All right. So I'm going to take this right down to about here because we had a bunch of kind of wall damage that needs to get repaired. So we're going to feather up here, tie that in, take this one down here, and that needs a little more right up here. Could pull a bit from there, bring it over. How are we going to solve this one, huh? I think we'll just keep working our way around. So, I'm not sure if you guys can really see, but like it just flows out so smooth. Now you don't want to put this in the hands of someone who is incompetent, because I've seen some pretty bad results from that too. I've definitely seen this given to somebody and they didn't understand the concept of what quicksets do. Now I mentioned how when you apply consecutive coats of quickset, especially onto already dry, like fully dry quickset. So if I let this totally dry and I came back and put another layer of confill, I will instantly get a new layer that is the same size as the aggregate in here. And so then it'll get built out and it'll start to look worse. And then you're like, oh, I have to put another coat on. And so I've seen this happen once, and the person was literally putting about a half an inch of mud on the wall over like 5 or 6 consecutive coats. And I had to come in and chisel all the mud off and bring it back down to something we could work with. So yes, it's not to be put in the hands of someone totally unsupervised that doesn't have the touch. But I do think that, like, can you see how this is just broad and flat? It didn't ripple or do anything too weird. We just have some stuff to scrape down, and it's a big flat surface that we can now work with. I do understand that I have the advantage of years of working with mud, but I want anyone in the comments who has used this stuff, who is not a seasoned vet, or who has used, maybe in the States, maybe you've used Structolite. If you've used that stuff, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Are there some advantages to a mud that has an aggregate like this in it? I can tell you who turned me on to this stuff. I knew it existed. I used it for pre-fill, but it was actually somebody named Bayano. And he's in one of the like friends section of my channel, but they do great drywall work. And those guys will often do like 2 or 3 coats of this stuff and then a skim of regular mud and get jobs done in one day. So this stuff has about a 1 hour set time before we can recoat. And if I was trying to get out of here in one day, I would apply a second coat of confill with mud in it, again, to improve the workability, and it would be almost dead flat at that point. And then I would need 1 more coat of regular mud. We're not gonna do that today because I have the time to let this place dry and we need to get out of here eventually. But for today's purpose, we're just gonna get everything nice, big and broad, and then put 1 coat of regular mud over top. It's that bad. So definitely for flat joints like this one that are intended to not really be built up, it doesn't need much. And confill is totally overkill for those. But if you push pretty hard on feathering those edges, you'll get it knocked down. These aggregates, perlite is kind of like, I don't know what it is exactly, but it's just sort of foamy. And it doesn't scratch your tools, doesn't scratch the walls or anything. So it's good stuff. It's so hard to like try and do this in a way that you guys can see and I can still actually do the job. That's looking pretty good right there. And we don't have the glancing light down this way, so if there is any imperfections, you can't see them. So another thing this stuff is great for hot mud in general is good for. Let's say you have a ton of wall damage. Unfortunately, I don't have any, but like, you know when you pull a bunch of tile off or just anything that was glued onto the wall, you rip it off and it's just horrible, especially like a tile backsplash. So instead of removing the drywall from a tile backsplash, we'll often use this stuff just to skim it all out. And if you put like a solid 1/8 of an inch on there, generally all of the bubbles and blisters that the brown paper, the board would cause can easily get buried and coated out. And then, yeah, and then you don't have to even paint it with shellac or any of that kind of stuff. So it's really good for, it's just good for burying stuff because of its high building capabilities. Take the plugs out, Ben. No, I'm using it. This is my light. So I think I've figured out how to kind of succinctly say what this stuff does and why I think it's good training wheel mud. So what it does is so normally I recommend, you add a whole bunch of mud and it's got to be enough so that you can sand it down to get flat. Well, this stuff just has the ability. Like right here, we got this paint ridge. You can sand that and you can repaint it a few times, but it's always going to be there a little bit. So we actually need to build it out to some degree. So if you just watch how this stuff kind of goes on, it goes on, the minimum thickness that it can go on is kind of the size of that aggregate. And this is about like how much you would need to build this out just to get rid of that annoying little line right here. Some people will disagree, but some people also put speed bumps on their walls. So now as I start to kind of feather this and make it not look stupid, you can see like it leaves a perfect layer. So this whole thing, that's actually how much you would have had to build it out with regular mud to get that to actually disappear. And if we look right here, we can see the ridge of that paint is still just sticking up. But because we put this stuff on that has that like millimeter build thickness, now this whole thing is built out, and with 2 more coats of regular mud, and it can be tight skims, that's the thing. So we're avoiding having to do a bunch of sanding. Everything in here from this point on is going to be tight skims because I've already given it the shape it's supposed to have, and I just find that this aggregate in here makes it easier to get the desired shape without having to sand. So that is how I can best describe why I think it's like training wheels. But maybe it actually would be really hard for people without skills. I don't know. Anyways, we gotta have coffee because yeah, this has to set and I need caffeine, and we'll come back and put a coat of mud over top of this. Okay, you guys, I'm caffeinated. That's good. So in terms of polishing this stuff down, I mentioned that you can kind of avoid sanding. So we still kind of need to scrape it down. It's got this super grainy texture. Now, the stuff that's over fresh drywall, it's ready. It can easily be polished, but the stuff that is over a painted surface, I still have to wait a little bit longer. And this is a common thing with Quickset, not just the Confill, is over top of this, it doesn't have the porosity, so it stays wetter longer and takes longer to set up. But right here, I'm gonna get my camera guy to zoom in a little bit on this so we can actually see the texture. Right here, we can see it's really grainy, but now we can kind of knock it down a little, flatten it out a bit. So that's ready to coat, and let's do that. My mud's pretty thin right now. No, a flat joint doesn't need to be this wide, but we're just doing a little bathroom, not a whole house, so it's okay if we take a little extra time getting everything nice and flat in here. So I don't know if you can, maybe you can zoom in right around where my trowel is, and you can see the porosity that's there. So this is why it takes 2 coats over top of this stuff, because so far I've only been wiping in this direction and it needs a pass like that to kind of fill in. Over top of fresh board, it doesn't bubble too bad. You know, we can get it looking kind of flat, right? Like that's pretty flat and acceptable. And one more coat over top of that is gonna be super flat and smooth. Oh, it's a bit of a balancing act. Don't put much weight on that foot. That's just for stabilizing. Yeah, there's no way I need to go this wide here. I mean, you know, if you're coating a flat joint, you can usually get away, if the framing's good, with them being about 10 inches wide. Feather my edge. Feather that like button if you're getting something from these videos. Okay, so that one's looking pretty good. And yeah, I think we are now at a point where we can start to shave and work this stuff a bit. And I'll show you how we get it nice and flat. I can tell it's not quite set up enough because I accidentally put my hand on this and a little bit of it lost adhesion. Right here where it's thicker, I think we're good. So what you can do, it doesn't matter which way my knife is facing. You know, I habit look for the curve of that blade, doesn't matter for this. But you can just shave those lift-offs. Be more careful over the painted surface. So you don't just have to use a putty knife. Another really good way to do this, if you're a trowel guy, is to use your trowel. It's a bigger, flatter surface. So what you can do is you can actually shave stuff down with your trowel. And it'll shave down the highest spots really well. Like right here, you can see it's shaving it down, and the spots where it doesn't need it, it's not really. But just a really quick pass like this kind of knocks down the highest parts of that grain. Oh, too early over the painted spot. Can you see that there? Dragged it. Yeah. Dragged it. But it's okay because we're doing 2 coats, not just 1. There's not really much salvaging that right this second. I'm very gently kind of trying to compress it back into place. But as you can see, too much pressure, no good. So now we're gonna just get all the little boogers and crusties out of here. Tidy up these corners, get them a little sharper. This doesn't really even need this, but if you want, you can do it. But that's looking pretty good there. I think I'll do this flat really quick so you guys can kind of see that in action again. And I am going to come back when this is all dry and give it one more quick coat. The reason that I'm not interested in trying to get it all in one day is because of the inside corners. It's possible, but very difficult to get inside corners perfect in one day. And you'll never get the 3 ways perfect. You're always gonna have to tune those up. So I'm pushing the stuff in both directions the best I can. Feather my edge. Feather my edge. And one more just to pretty it up. So it's already very flat and looking pretty good. It's just filling that porosity is what takes the most. Anyways, let's carry on here. That bench is noisy. Get right up into that corner. And I'm gonna take it right up to the corner here because we've got to coat one side of all the corners today, so we may as well tie it all in, and the other side will get coated on my next trip. This is still the dish soap mud. I can smell it. It's pretty diluted, but it's still got like 50% of the dish soap mud in here. I got to get a new box. See if I can get a little more mud into that electrical receptacle. Help out the homeowner there. It's not a properly done drywall job if you haven't filled the boxes full of mud. Okay, let's go up into this corner. Feather this edge. And what are we gonna do? Sideways or top down? Let's go top down this time. Oh, not enough mud back here. Might be hard to see. I left a little hollow spot. I could honestly just leave it and sand it. Or I could throw a little bit more if I really want to fuss about making this flat. Now pressure on my right hand side. It's not going to be perfect. I just have to live with it and move on. Like right there. I probably would have had a smoother coat had I gone this way because that's the way I started, but anyways. Just flattening out a couple of those lines. Happy with that. Okay, and here's this part that I was talking about that needs to be actually built out a little bit, right? So we're just gonna skim it tight. 2 tight skims, and that'll be really flat. Shouldn't cause any problems with the countertop or the mirror that comes in. You know, people are always shocked at how wide I coat things. Always saying it's unnecessary. Oh, here I go talking about the comments when I said I wasn't going to do it, but it's important for me to tell you why I do this. So when I'm done the job and this is sanded and it gets painted, all the cabinets go in well, all the walls look flat, and people actually call me back to do more work. So I don't know. Maybe it is necessary. Oh, mosquito. Should we plaster him in? I'm not gonna try to, but if he's still there. He moved. You're testing me. So I'm just tying these 2 in because, you know, I'm here. Why not? We're not even talking about the training wheel mud anymore, but that's okay. If you're here for the ASMR mud work, well, here it is. I'm gonna bring a little bit of that over there and let it go. And now I'm gonna start going down this way. Yeah, a little bit of dried crusties in there, those can stay. they'll sand out. ASMR mud work. That's ASMR for short. That'll do. I know sometimes it's hard to see all the lift-offs in my finished work, but right here you can actually see what it looks like because of the lighting. But yeah, this will get a little bit sanded. One more tight coat over top of this, it'll be super smooth. Honestly though, because we built this up so much, I could actually tighten up my coat here. It doesn't need to be this thick. Like, because of the training wheel mud, I could actually start, I shouldn't be leaving such a buildup. Otherwise, there was no point in that initial coat. But I'm happy with that. That now looks good. We can see where the edge was of that other coat, but this will all sand out nice and smooth. Now it's a little bit thinner, and we've actually justified using that first coat to really flatten this all out. Like, this is liquid wall. You guys remember that, right? We're applying coats of liquid wall to get this nice and smooth. So this stuff is properly set up, and I just wanted to show you that once it's actually kicked off, you could pretty indiscriminately wipe it down over top of the painted surface too. But we were just trying to finish this, so I got started before it was like 100% kicked off. But now it's just coating time. There we go. All right, you guys. So you get the general idea. It kind of gives you a head start on getting a big flat coat. This wasn't necessarily the ideal job for it. It's especially good on the jobs where you have the big nasty butt joints that need to be like, you know, built out 3/8 thick and like 4 feet wide, 5 feet wide. Like, that's where Confill really shines, is, you know, floating out, creating broad flat surfaces, or at least the illusion of it. Anyways, I do think though there is some advantage to be had for anybody with basic mud skills who just finds that maybe their work isn't getting as flat as they would like. I think that, yeah, you might be able to benefit from having something like that in your mud. So this last thing I'm doing here, I always get all the joints coated first, and then I come back and do whatever angles need it. What's that, our right hand side? So we'll carry on this part just to get the three-way all tuned up, but I'll do the rest of it when I come back. It's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Okay, that's about it, you guys. I really hope you got something out of this video. I hope that it was more than just a gimmicky, you know, training wheels in your mud video. I hope there was just lots of useful little tidbits. We definitely went long past, you know, the original concept and into a lot of bonus content. Hopefully that was useful. Anyways, I'm done talking. I just want to say I hope your project's going really well, but I hope you're doing even better. And yeah, I gotta put the tools away and drive home. Till the next one, you guys.